let's find out about it. We are going to talk about water, and we're going to get to talk about what things absorb water, what things takes water in, and what things repels water. So what things that kind of goes away from the water. So I have the book that we read today, Rabbits and Raindrops. I have a page to show you in the book, and I want you to tell me what's going on this page. What do you remember from when you read the book during reading time?
It's raining.
You're right, Ruth, it is raining.
They're hopping away.
They're hopping away, so the baby rabbits, they're hopping away, and they're hopping under the hedge because it's raining. And so the mama rabbit doesn't want the baby rabbits to get all wet. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the mama rabbit wants the baby rabbits to be under the hedge?
They can be sick.
They could get sick? What do you think, Ruth? You think they're going to get cold? So let's.
They don't like the rain.
They don't like the rain? So let's see what the book says. It says, a rabbit's fur is not waterproof. Baby rabbits can become soaked and catch cold. So like Ruth said, they can become cold. And also, so mother rabbit hurries her babies back under the hedge, so under the row of bushes. And I remember in one dark night that we had a mama cat, the stray cat, and she brought her kittens inside to Jonathan because she didn't want her little kittens to get wet either.
Cats don't like rain.
So we sounds like cats don't like rain, and rabbits, especially the baby rabbits, they don't like rain either. Okay, so I have another page to show you in this book. You're going to have to use your looking eyes for this book. Agnes, what do you see on this
Bird.
page? There is a bird. Ruth, is there anything that you see on this page?
A grasshopper.
There is a grasshopper. Where is the grasshopper?
Right there.
Oh, it's right there. And I also see a little field mouse. Do you see the little field
Gross.
mouse? Oh, you don't like mice? No. That's okay. Some people don't like mice. But I see the little field mouse. Anything that you see, Ruth, about the little field mouse?
Has hands on his face.
Yeah, his hands are on his face. Why do you think that might be, Agnes?
He doesn't want the water on his eye.
He doesn't want the water on his eye. That's right, because it looks like the field mouse is really wet. I see that there's some puddles underneath the field mouse. I think he's dripping.
He wasn't wearing a raincoat.
He wasn't wearing a raincoat, Agnes, and he got soaked. So I think that he was out in the rain a lot longer than the baby rabbits because he's really wet and he has his paws on his eyes to kind of get some of the water out. So I think he's soaked. The water got absorbed into his fur and he's really wet. It doesn't look like he likes that. Okay. So how do you think when the baby animals get wet, how do they get dry? Because that field mouse is really, really wet.
They could use a towel.
Oh, Ruth thinks they could use a towel.
Hair dry.
I just think a hair dryer. They could maybe use a towel. I'm not sure they could use a hair dryer, but if they use a towel, do they get all dry by somebody, like if the mama rabbit tells them off, will they get all dry?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. What happens when you like wash your hair, somebody in your family helps wash your hair like in the bath of the shower? How does your hair get dry?
It just gets dry.
It just gets dry.
You go out in the sun.
So maybe you go out in the sun. So maybe somebody like tells you off, and then your hair's still maybe a little damp, which means it's still a little wet. And then what happens is that your hair's still damp, but then the water evaporates into the air, which means it goes away. Let's say evaporates. Evaporates. That's right. And that means that something kind of it's wet, and it might go into the air, and then it gets dry.
Where does it go?
Where do you think it goes?
The clouds.
It could go into the clouds. It could. That's how something gets dry sometimes. It kind of evaporates and it sort of goes into the air. So now I have something else to show you. I have a pair of mittens. And I want each of you to hold a mitten and see how you think it feels. How does a mitten feel? Oh, Ruth wants to put the mitten on.
Warm.
It feels warm?
Soft.
Okay, Ruth says soft, soft and cuddly.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's kind of like the rabbit's fur.
Yeah.
Or it's like the field mouse's fur. Okay, so I need my mittens back. Thank you. And now I have something else for you to feel. This is a rain boot. Some people call these galoshes. How does that feel?
My mom has one.
Galoshes, it's a big word. Your mom has galoshes, rain boots? How does it feel, Agnes?
Feels like a balloon.
Feels like a balloon.
Like.
You feel like it's like rubbery? Ruth, your turn.
It's squeaky.
It's making noises. It is squeaky. How do you think it feels?
Like an umbrella.
Like, oh, it feels like an umbrella. Okay, so now we have a really cool experiment that we're going to try with the mittens. and with the galoshes. So I have a spray bottle, and I'm going to spray, thank you, I'm going to spray the mittens. What do you think is going to happen when I spray the mittens?
It'll get wet.
You think it'll get wet? Do you think it'll get really wet, like it'll get soaked? Or do you think it'll get a little wet, like it might get damp?
Like you're gonna spray a lot of water?
I think I'm just going to spray a little bit of
A
water.
little bit wet.
A little bit wet? Okay, let's see. Our spray bottle doesn't want to work that well. Oh! What's going on?
You can see it like rain.
You can see it like rain. And how does the mitten feel? Feels cold? What do you think, Ruth?
Well, it got wet.
It got wet, and it's cold a little bit.
Now it's on my hand.
Now it's on your hand. Okay, so now I have a little tray, and we're going to spray the galoshes on the tray. What do you think is going to happen to the boot when I spray it? Do you think it's going to be just like the mitten where it got wet? No? How come you think that, Agnes?
Ruth said it's like an umbrella, so it's gonna fall off it.
Oh, you think it's going to fall off it? It's going to repel the water? Okay, let's try. I'm just going to do a little bit of water, just like I did with the mitten. What's happening?
It slides down to the bottom.
It is. It's sliding down to the bottom. That means this boot is repelling the water just like an umbrella would. So if I move the boot, what do you see on the tray?
The water.
The water, because it didn't stick. It stuck. The water stuck to the mitten, but it did stick to the rain boot. Okay, you ready for another experiment? Because now we have another experiment. Okay, so I have a bowl of water, and I have two mittens, and I'm going to put them both in the bowl of water. What do you think is going to happen to the mittens when I put them in the bowl of water?
You're gonna get so wet.
They're going to get so wet. Sounds like you think they're going to get soaked. Okay, I'm going to try. Oh, but you know what we need to do before we do that? We need to wipe off the tray. So the tray is all dry. Okay, so I put one mitten in. Now I'm putting the other mitten in. The bowl of water. Okay, I'm almost ready to take them out. The tray right here.
Why are you getting them all wet?
Because I want to see what happens. Like, let's see. What do they look like now?
Oh, it's dripping.
It's dripping. What about that one?
I don't want to wear it.
You don't want to wear it because it's really wet? So did the water go into the mitten?
Yeah, a lot.
So it wasn't like the rain boot, because when we sprayed the rain boot, the water just kind of rolled off the rain boot, but the water is in the mitten. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze it out. I'm going to try to wring it out a little bit, because now we have one last experiment, and each of you is going to get to predict what you think is going to happen in our last experiment. So look at all that water that's on the tray. All that water got in the mittens, because the mittens absorbed the water. Okay, so this is our last experiment. So, this experiment's not going to be done until the next day of Jumpstart. So, what we're going to do is one of these mittens, one of the wet mittens, is going to go into a plastic bag. And it's going to stay in that plastic bag until our next day of Jumpstart. Okay, and then I'm going to dry off the tray again. And then the other wet mitten is going to go on the tray. And we're going to leave it alone until our next day of Jumpstart. And now we're going to get to predict. What do you think is going to happen to the mittens? Because that mitten is in the plastic bag, and this mitten's going to be on the tray. What's going to happen between now and Wednesday when we have Jumpstart again? Do you think the mittens will be wet? Or do you think the mittens will be dry? Or damp? What do you think? Remember, damp's just a little wet. So one's going to be on the tray, and then one's going to be in the plastic bag, and I already sealed it up real tight. So now I have a clipboard, and I'm going to write down with a pen what you think, thanks Agnes, and what you think is going to happen. So what do you think is going to happen to the mitten that's in the bag?
Getting it dry.
Ruth thinks that the mitten in the bag is going to get dry. Okay, I'm going to write down, Ruth thinks the mitten in the bag is going to be dry. What do you think, Agnes?
I think it'll be wet because the sun won't go on it to dry it.
Okay, so it sounds like you and Ruth have opposite opinions. So you think the mitten will be wet because the sun won't dry it. Okay, what about the one that's on the tray?
I think that they're both going to be dry.
So Ruth thinks that both wet mittens are going to be dry.
All the water's going to go to the clouds.
Because all the water is going to go to the clouds. Okay. What do you think, Agnes?
I think the one on the tray is gonna be dry.
So now you both agree. So you both think the mitten on the tray is going to be dry. Why do you think that, Agnes?
Because the sun can go on it and dry it.
Oh, because the sun. You think the sun will dry it?
Mhm.
We need to put it somewhere in our classroom where it's going to be safe. I think we're going to put it on the windowsill. Or maybe on a table that nobody's going to touch it until our next day of Jumpstart. Okay, friends, thanks for coming to Let's Find Out About It with me. Where do you want to play for center time?
Housekeeping.
Ruth, where do you want to play?
Art.
All right, sounds fun.